Did you know that SNL finally poked fun at President Biden? It took ages for the king of late-night satire to get to this point, but they finally did. So what's the big deal, you might ask? Well, what does it mean for us when a show known for steering clear of hard jabs at Democrats is now doing exactly that? Jabbing at Democrats? Today, we'll talk about SNL's latest skit, where the legendary Dana Carvey hilariously impersonates Biden, and why this marks a huge shift in the show's approach to political satire. After years of going easy on certain politicians, SNL has taken a bold step into new territory, raising eyebrows from all sides. But it's not just about Carvey's spot-on impression, it's about what this skit might be signaling for the future of America. Has SNL finally started reflecting the frustrations more Americans are feeling? And what does this say about the cultural shift happening right now? Are the woke sheeple of the US of A finally breaking free from being brainwashed? Stick around because we're diving deep into SNL's evolution and how it might just be catching on to the growing number of people questioning the status quo. Now, we all know SNL as a staple of late-night comedy, but not everyone remembers where or how it all started, and more importantly, how much it has changed over the years. For those who might not be familiar, Saturday Night Live first hit the airwaves in 1975, created by Lorne Michaels as a bold experiment in late-night television. Back then, SNL wasn't about pushing any particular political agenda or catering to a specific group. Instead, it was a place where new comedic styles were tested, boundaries were pushed, and a whole new type of TV show was born. It was raw, edgy, and completely unpredictable, something TV viewers had never seen before. The early cast was stacked with now legendary names who laid the foundation for what SNL would become. Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, Jane Curtin, and Gilda Radner were just a few of the original cast members, known as the not ready for prime time players. Each brought a distinct comedic style to the stage. Chase's deadpan delivery, Aykroyd's sharp wit, and Radner's quirky, offbeat charm set the tone for the show's unique brand of humor. In those early years, they weren't afraid to fail. SNL's appeal came from that live, anything-can-happen energy where the show was as much about experimenting as it was about delivering laughs. That rawness was a huge part of its success. SNL wasn't just a comedy show, but a reflection of America's mood. The sketches often parodied political figures like Richard Nixon, but the jokes didn't lean too hard in one direction. They poked fun at everyone, from politicians to pop culture icons, creating a space where the humor felt universal. It didn't matter back then if you were liberal, conservative, or somewhere in between, you could find something to laugh at in SNL's early sketches. That balance, where everyone was fair game, helped the show resonate with a broad audience. But if we look at then and now, there's no denying that SNL has undergone a significant change, and not for the better. The humor that once felt universal now seems to lean heavily toward a certain political viewpoint, often leaving viewers feeling like the show has become more about pushing woke narratives than delivering laughs for everyone. If the early days of SNL were about uniting people through comedy, with sketches that didn't shy away from mocking both sides of the aisle, today the show feels more divisive, with sketches that cater to a much narrower segment of the audience. This change isn't lost on longtime viewers who remember a time when SNL was about experimenting with satire for the sake of comedy, not politics. The genius of early SNL was that it knew how to take down powerful figures and absurd cultural trends while making everyone feel in on the joke. That's why those early years are still remembered so fondly. SNL could bring people together through laughter, regardless of where they stood politically. But before it became the left-leaning woke program it is now, SNL had to look for a formula for success that turned it into a late-night TV juggernaut. The show tried a bit of everything: celebrity guest hosts, musical performances, and sketches that built humor around the simple, everyday experiences we all go through. By keeping its finger on the pulse of both pop culture and daily life, SNL made sure that no two episodes felt the same. What made it different from other shows was its ability to mix high-concept satire with humor that was accessible to everyone. And it's those iconic moments that people remember, the ones that have stuck with audiences across generations. Take Wayne's World, for example, a goofy sketch about two slackers hosting a cable access show from their basement. It resonated because it captured the spirit of a generation blending satire with pure fun. Then there's More Cowbell, where Christopher Walken's deadpan delivery turned a seemingly trivial moment in music history into one of the most quotable sketches in SNL history. These sketches worked because they took simple, relatable concepts and made them hilarious, often in ways that you didn't see coming. Celebrity Jeopardy was another standout, with Will Ferrell as Alex Trebek dealing with contestants who were as clueless as they were over-the-top ridiculous. These became part of the cultural lexicon, quoted for years to come. But it was SNL's broad appeal that became a crucial part of its success. Back in the day, the show wasn't aiming to please just one demographic. It could appeal to everyone, whether you were tuning in for the musical guest, the sharp political satire, or just to see your favorite celebrity host. And let's not forget the way SNL helped launch the careers of some of the biggest names in comedy. Eddie Murphy's outrageous characters, Will Ferrell's absurd sense of humor, and Kristen Wiig's unmatched versatility all contributed to what made SNL great. The show's ability to entertain such a wide range of people and its role as a launchpad for so many stars cemented its place in television history. In its prime, it was a uniting force in American comedy with something for everyone. But as the years went on, something changed. SNL began to undergo a noticeable change in tone post-2016. The show, which had once been a space where everyone, no matter their political beliefs, could enjoy a laugh, started to lean more heavily into political correctness and progressive causes. It wasn't an overnight switch, but the shift became most apparent during and after the 2016 presidential election. In the years that followed, many viewers felt that SNL had traded its traditionally broad humor for a more targeted and, at times, exclusionary brand of comedy that aligned closely with left-leaning politics. One of the most defining aspects of this change was the Trump era. Alec Baldwin's portrayal of Donald Trump became a staple of the show, with the sketches heavily focused on lampooning the former president. While Baldwin's impression drew praise for its sharp satire, it also became clear that SNL was dedicating a significant portion of its airtime to criticizing Trump and his administration. The humor, once playful and balanced, now felt like it had an agenda. Sure, Trump's larger-than-life persona was ripe for satire, but the constant barrage of anti-Trump jokes started to alienate some of SNL's more moderate or conservative viewers. What was once a show that parodied everyone, from Republicans to Democrats, began to feel one-sided, with fewer punches thrown at figures on the left. For many longtime fans, the shift wasn't just about Trump. They noticed that SNL was becoming more aligned with left-leaning progressivist, aka, woke causes, often using sketches to highlight social justice issues or promote certain political messages. While there's nothing wrong with satire that has a message, some viewers started to feel like the balance had tipped. The show, which once had a more equal opportunity approach to its targets, seemed more focused on pushing a political agenda rather than delivering humor for a wide audience. It wasn't just about the jokes, they were still there, but now they came with a side of moral lecturing. Critics of the show argued that SNL had become less inclusive in its humor, prioritizing certain political messages over the comedy itself. The biting satire that used to poke fun at everyone regardless of their beliefs was replaced by humor that resonated mostly with a particular group. If you aligned with progressive values, SNL still felt like the cutting-edge show it had always been. But if you didn't, it was easy to feel like the jokes weren't for you anymore. This shift led to some viewers turning away, feeling like SNL was no longer a place where everyone could come together for a laugh. The show, which had once prided itself on its irreverence and willingness to go after anyone, was now often seen as part of the very establishment it used to mock. Some of its sketches became more predictable, with viewers anticipating the same political messages week after week, leaving less room for the unexpected, universal humor that had once made it a cultural touchstone. But then out of nowhere came Dana Carvey's recent portrayal of Joe Biden, a comedic highlight that felt like a refreshing throwback to the SNL of old. Carvey, a master of political impersonations known for his iconic George H.W. Bush character, brought his signature humor to his Biden impersonation, delivering a version of the president that was both exaggerated and oddly endearing. His Biden was part quirky old man, part clueless politician, a balance that resonated with audiences who'd been waiting for SNL to satirize a Democrat with the same zeal they had shown during the Trump years. This move signaled a surprising shift for SNL, showing that maybe, just maybe, the show was ready to poke fun at both sides again. At the same time, Kamala Harris has also been included in recent sketches, though her portrayal has been far more delicate. While Harris hasn't been the central focus of SNL's satire, she's appeared in sketches, hinting that SNL is at least willing to lightly parody both top Democratic figures. Harris, played by Maya Rudolph, is usually depicted as cool and confident, though there are moments where the show allows some cracks in the portrayal, subtle jokes about her political image, for example, that mock her vice presidential role without going too far. The show is clearly testing the waters with Harris, perhaps concerned about leftist backlash, but the inclusion of both Biden and Harris in sketches suggests that SNL is edging toward a more balanced approach. This shift toward satirizing both Biden and Harris could be a step in the right direction for SNL. While Biden's portrayal remains more lighthearted and Harris's satire feels cautious, it does signal a possible return to the show's roots of equal opportunity humor. The treatment isn't as sharp or critical as the relentless parodies of Trump, but the mere fact that SNL is now including both Democratic leaders in its comedy might suggest a willingness to reach a broader audience again. If SNL can find the right balance between biting satire and inclusive humor, it could win back some of the viewers who felt alienated in recent years. This shift isn't happening in a vacuum, though. SNL's slight move toward more balanced satire mirrors a broader cultural trend of public figures moving away from staunchly progressive stances toward centrist or even conservative views. On the surface, at least, it looks like SNL is getting red-pilled, which is kind of becoming a trend these days. One of the more prominent figures who seems to have gotten red-pilled recently is Mark Zuckerberg. While Zuckerberg was long viewed as a tech mogul who leaned into leftist progressive ideals, especially with policies around censorship on Facebook, recently there's been a shift. Zuckerberg is now positioning himself as a defender of free speech, pushing Meta to adopt a more balanced approach to online discourse. This pivot comes after years of criticism from both the left and the right, with many conservatives feeling silenced on social media platforms. Zuckerberg's move toward promoting more free speech, even for viewpoints that might not align with the progressive mainstream, is a clear indicator of the red pill trend in action. It's no longer about strictly towing the progressive line, it's about opening up dialogue and avoiding the pitfalls of extreme political correctness. Zuckerberg getting red-pilled isn't an isolated case. There's been a wave of public figures and politicians making similar shifts. Whether it's prominent individuals like Joe Rogan speaking out against political correctness or former Democrats like Tulsi Gabbard leaving their party, the trend is clear. More people are moving away from rigid political partisanship and embracing a wider spectrum of ideas. This shift reflects a broader desire for open dialogue and less dogma, a desire to push back against the hyper-progressive wokeness that has infested cultural and political discourse in recent years.